This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Chodesh, Mishanichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha. So now, even though we've been discussing Purim now for 2 weeks, but now we're really in the thick of things. Now we're really, we're getting real close now. We're already in Chodesh Adar, which is a Chodesh Shenepach Me'evel Yom Tov. The whole month has been transformed as a month of a good month for the Jewish people. And if I were to ask you what is the most well-known pasuk in the entire Megillas Esther, I think most people would say, La Yehudim Haisa Oira B'Simcha B'Sasain B'Kar. The Jewish people had light, happiness, joy, and honor. And the reason why this pasuk would have been chosen, not only is it a pasuk which really captures the miracle of Purim, but aside from that, this is a pasuk we're all familiar with from Havdalah. Every Jew, when they make Havdalah, they invoke the pasuk La Yehudim Ha'yisrael V'Simcha V'Kar, and then we're mispalel Kain Ti Alanu, so should be for us. So very interesting that here it is Motzai Shabbos, and it could be in the summer, it could be Pesach time, it could be Chanukah time, and every Motzai Shabbos we're invoking La Yehudim Ha'yisrael V'Simcha V'Sasim B'Kar. And how interesting, what in the world are we doing invoking Purim on Motzai Shabbos? And in fact, this is not just any old custom, but it's endorsed by the Rama in Siman Reish Sadi Vav. Look at number 2. The Rama says the minhag is to say La Yehudim Ha'yisrael as a Siman Tov. Very interesting. But I want to point out that there are many things that we do in Havdalah that actually are a commemoration of the Purim miracle. For example, many may not be aware that in your besamim, it is an ancient Jewish practice to put hadassim in the besamim. Many people might not know, maybe people are not knowing this way, but this is an ancient custom, and it's brought down in the Torah. The Torah writes, Nohagu levarech al atzei hadas. The minhag is, you know what kind of besamim you should use Motzai Shabbos? Myrtles. B'smach ledavar, and the hint to this is Kol shomer Shabbos mechalaloi. We lay in on every tainus. Anyone who keeps the Shabbos from desecrating it, right? Kol shomer Shabbos mechalaloi. And right next to it, it says v'samach lei tachas asirpad yale hadas. Right? Tachas asirpad yale hadas. So we have the juxtaposition of Shabbos to hadassim. So from here, there's a source that Motzai Shabbos, you should use besamim that come from hadassim. And not only is this brought down by the Torah, the Beis Yosef also brings it down. So whether you're Ashkenazi or whether you're Sephardi, this is the original, authentic minhag of besamim, to use hadassim for besamim, based on the juxtaposition of the psukim in Yeshaya that put hadas next to Shabbos. But Rabbi Say, if we look very carefully at this pasuk in Yeshaya, look at number 5. Tachas hanatzutz, in the place of the thorn, yale v'roish, arises a cypress. Tachas hasirpad, in the place of the thistle, yale hadas, arises a myrtle. V'hayal Hashem l'shem, and it will be for God as a name, la'isailam la'yikares. Says the Gemara Masechta Megillah Daf Yud Amud Beis, that Reb Shmuel bar Nachmani, whenever he would begin to expound upon Megillas Esther, he always needed to introduce it. Now, nowadays when a rabbi begins a drasha, so they say a corny joke, right? But they were smart back then. They didn't find them funny back then. So it was not a good way to go. The worst thing you could do is to say a bad joke. You know, people think a rabbi has to say a joke. Yeah, but if a rabbi is a serious guy, and he tries to make a joke, it's not funny. Right? So therefore, sometimes better not to skip the joke. You're better... there's nothing worse than a bad joke. So Rav Shimon bar Nachmani said, I'll introduce it with the Bar Torah. Right? You can't go wrong with that. So he would introduce his Shiur on Megillas Esther from this pasuk, Tachas hanatzutz yale beroish, v'sachas hasirpad yale hadas. Says Rav Shimon bar Nachmani, who is the thorn? Haman. In the place of Haman arises the cypress. Who's the cypress? Mordechai. Why is Mordechai a cypress? Says the Gemara, Mordechai is considered the best kind of besamim. He's Roish L'chol HaBesamim. Because it says in Parshas Kisisa, that the first ingredient of the Ketores, the first ingredient is Mar Derar. Mar Derar, the Targum says, Mardachia, Mordechai. So Mordechai is another way of saying the first ingredient of aromatic spices. So therefore, in the place of Haman comes Mordechai. And then Tachas HaSirpad, their Sirpad is a reference to Vashti. We're going to talk about Vashti, because we're going to see there's a very troubling thing about Vashti and her tail. And don't worry, we will get to her tail. That's definitely major, number one on the agenda tonight, is the tale of Vashti. You will not leave this room tonight without knowing the real story about that tale. Okay, whatever they told you beforehand, you just disregard completely, because you are here tonight to get the real scoop on Vashti's tale. Okay, but stay tuned, okay? And so Tachas HaSirpad, in the place of the thistle, and that's a reference to Vashti, in the place of Vashti, Yale Hadas. Who's Hadassah? No, Vayihi Oimeines Hadassah. Esther. Esther is Hadassah. So what do we see from here? That not just, Rabbi Isai, is there a connection between Shabbos and a myrtle, but that myrtle in the Navi is specifically referring to Esther. So again, it's very interesting. Here you have Matzoi Shabbos, you're making Havdalah, and all of a sudden you think it's Purim night, like Yehudim Ha'Yisrael v'Simcha v'Sasam Yikar. If you would actually be paying attention to what you're saying, you might think it's Purim. Okay? And then, or you take out a Hadas, that's Esther. What's Esther doing in the middle of Havdalah? Says Achsam Sofer, that we know, the Pasuk says, in the Megillah, on the seventh day, Achashveirosh was finally satisfied with wine. So Gemara asks, what, he's been drinking for the last 180 days, and he hasn't been satisfied until now. All of a sudden, now he's satisfied. Says the Gemara Megillah on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, that when the Megillah says it was the seventh day, it means it was Shabbos. And what do Jews do when they eat and drink? They speak Divrei Torah. But what do Goyim do when they eat and drink? Goyim speak about inappropriate things. They speak about Nashim, they speak about women. And a debate broke out. Which Nashim are the most beautiful? The Persians said, the Persians. The Medes said, the Medes. Achashveirosh said, no. My Kli, my vessel that I use, Achashveirosh says, she's not Persian, she's not Median, she's a Kazdi, she's Chaldean. You want to see? They said, yeah, provided it's under our conditions. And those conditions were, sure, her outfit could not be the most modest outfit, to say the least, right? You know the story. So Vashti was expected to come out, aruma, completely undressed. And that's what happened. And the Gemara asks, why was Vashti going to suffer this terrible fate of being embarrassed publicly in front of all the officials? Says the Gemara that what Vashti did to the Jewish women, that's what was going to happen to her. Because the Gemara says that Vashti used to work Jewish girls, and she used to make them work for her arum, completely unclothed, dafka on Shabbos, and therefore Vashti was expected to come parade herself on Shabbos completely aruma. Says the Chasam Sofer, that's why when Shabbos is over, and we just had the privilege to keep a Shabbos, not like in the times of Vashti when we couldn't keep Shabbos, now we could keep Shabbos. So now is a good time to celebrate the Purim heroes. If you're able to celebrate a Shabbos, then you remember how bad things were in the times of Vashti. And now, Baruch Hashem, Vashti's not around, that nasty lady's gone. And now we could celebrate a Shabbos. So when Shabbos is over, says the Chasam Sofer, you take out, number one, Besamim. Who do Besamim represent? Mordechai, Mardachia, the choicest Besamim. And what do you put in the Besamim? Hadassim. Yeah, okay, I don't want to get anyone in trouble. Everyone's going to say, oh, you have to put Besamim, Hadassim in the Besamim. You can't get Hadassim now. Don't worry. Sukkot is coming in, half a year. So you wait until then. You take your Hadassim and you put them in the Besamim. You'll be Mekayim it then. Now we're just learning about it, okay? So here it is. Every Matzah Shabbos, all of a sudden we learn from the Megillah, Yehudim Ha'Yisrael v'Simcha v'Sasam Yikar, and we take out Mordechai in the Besamim box, and we take out Esther, the Hadassim. It's like a whole Purim story every Matzah Shabbos. But there's another thing here. And that is, the Shulchan Aruch tells us that Matzah Shabbos, when you make a bracha on fire, The ideal way to do it is not to use a candle, but to use a torch. What is a halachic torch? How many wicks do you need to make a halachic torch? Right? Says the Rama, look at number 11. V'ner sheyesh lo shtei psilos. A candle that has 2 wicks. Mikri avuka is called a torch. Okay? So all it has to have is 2 wicks. Says the Chasam Sofer, we know that when Avram Avinu had the vision by the Bris Ben Abasarim, the pasuk says, "V'hine ema chashecha gedola noifel asalav." And the Medrash says that these 4 expressions represent the 4 exiles. And what does chashecha represent? What does darkness represent? Look at number 12. Chashecha is Madai. Chashecha refers to the Persian Median Empire. Shechshicha einayim shel Yisrael, because they darkened our eyes with their tsaros. Now listen carefully. Says the Chasam Sofer, if the Persian exile is called darkness, now we understand the Medrash brought down in the Yalkut on Shmuel. The Medrash says the following: Ki ata ta'ir neiri, God, you light up for us. Says the Chasam Sofer that if Persia and Media is called darkness, now we understand why Mordechai and Esther are called 2 lights. Says the Chasam Sofer, you want to know what Mordechai and Esther are analogous to? The last words of the Chasam Sofer, number 13, Mashal de Mordechai ve'Esther lama hu doime. What are Mordechai and Esther comparable to? L'shtei neiros, 2 candles. Mordechai and Esther are like 2 candles. So listen to what's going on. Every Matzah Shabbos, La Yehudim Haysa'ar V'Simchas Mikar. Then you smell the Besamim, that's Mordechai. And you smell the Hadassim, that's Esther. And the torch, which is 2 candles, who do the 2 candles represent? Mordechai and Esther. What's going on? It's not Purim every week. Every Matzah Shabbos we remember Purim. You know, instead of Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim by Havdalah, it's Zeichel L'Shushan Abira. What's going on? The whole ceremony of Havdalah all of a sudden is like a commemoration of Purim. The only thing we're missing now is like a Grager at the Havdalah. That's the only thing we're missing. What's going on? What's the inyan? Why are we so focused? Why do we emphasize the memory of Purim every Matzah Shabbos in these 3 ways? And in fact, it comes out very beautiful. Some people have a custom that when they say La Yehudim Haysa'ira, they lift up the candle. Now it makes sense. Because La Yehudim Haysa'ira is a commemoration of Purim. And you lift up the candle is Mordechai and Esther. So the 2 go together. But what's this, what is this? Why are we getting carried away memorializing Purim every Matzah Shabbos? Okay. By the way, I'll just tell you, it's very interesting, that when it says it was the 7th day and the king's heart was good with wine, there's a commentary on the Megillah called Malay HaOmer of Rabbi Aryeh Leib Tzins. And Rabbi Aryeh Leib Tzins says, it was the 7th day, it was Shabbos. And who's the king? The king is God. And what wine was he pleased with? Kiddush. The wine that he was pleased with was the yayin of Kiddush. Now, very interesting. The Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz points out that Vashti was a very smart lady. Vashti did not just arbitrarily make the Jewish girls work on Shabbos. She knew that the greatest zechus of the Jewish people is Shmir Shabbos, so she specifically made the Jewish girls work on Shabbos. But Esther, on the other hand, the Gemara says, does anybody know, what did Esther do when she was in the king's palace? Did she work? Did she not work? Did she, idle away her time? So the Gemara says that Esther had 7 maidservants. And the Gemara says, look at number 17. Ve'es sheva hana'arais, and the 7 maidservants. Amar Rava said, Shahoisa moina bohen yimei Shabbos. Esther would use her 7 maidservants to count the days of the week. So let's say, she knew when Shprinza would come, Shprinza was Sunday, and on Monday when Shendel would come, Esther knew what day of the week it was depending on which maidservant would come. So all the Mefarshim ask, it's not rocket science to know what day of the week it is that Esther needs to have. I mean, if she's the queen, you don't think the king gave her some kind of, calendar? It's not really common. It's not like, February. Nobody ever knows what day of the month it is or how many days. Is it 28, 29, 32? Nobody knows. Nobody ever knows this month how many days it is. It's weeks, days of the week. I mean, this is why did Esther need to count the days of the week by her maidservants? So Rabbi Glatstein says, because Esther had a specific dilemma. Here, Mordechai tells her, don't let on that you're Jewish. So if she's going to keep Shabbos, everyone's going to know she's a Jew. So what should she do? So she thinks to herself, no, you know what I'm going to do? I won't work the whole week. That's a very big problem. A human being cannot not work. You have to work. The Gemara tells us, being idle makes you crazy. If somebody has too much free time on their hands, they become insane. People think, I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to clear my mind. When you go on vacation, you just get more agitated, more stressed, more anxious. Why? Because you have more time to think about things. The best medicine is in life to be busy. The best medicine in life. People have emotional distress. The first thing you tell them is work, do something. It's the best medicine for worry is keep your mind busy. Not only for men, for women also. The Gemara says, a woman, even if her husband is a multi-billionaire, she has to keep busy. Otherwise, it's not good. So Esther says to herself, look, I'm the queen, but I got to keep busy, so I can't not work the whole week just because I don't want to work on Shabbos. So Esther devised a whole scheme. She's going to have a different servant every day of the week. So the Sunday servant saw Esther work. The Sunday servant figured Esther works the whole week. The Monday servant saw Esther work. The Monday servant thought Esther works the whole week. The Shabbos servant who saw Esther not work, she said, you know what, this girl, she's a lazy, good for nothing. She doesn't work ever. So this way Esther was able to keep, this was her plan, this was her cover-up to her ability to keep Shabbos. Okay. So Rabbi, I want to share with you, look at number 15, and this is where our journey begins, a very important idea. The Gemara says like this. Right after the Purim miracle, Mordechai comes to the Jewish people. He says, listen up! You know what this Yom Tov is going to be? Simcha! Oh, everyone clap. Everyone, go, Simcha. Mishteh! Party! Yeah, everyone's cheering. Mordechai, we love you. You're the Gadol Adar. They made a big banner for him. Admar, Mareinu, V'Rabbeinu, Mordechai, we like this Gadol. And then Mordechai said, V'Yom Tov! Boo! Boo, everyone booed Mordechai. Yom Tov? We're going to lose the hours. We're going to lose the work. We don't want to lose an extra sick day. So they booed Mordechai. So Gemara says like this. In the beginning of the story, in the beginning of the miracle, so then Mordechai tried to make a Yom Tov. At the end of the Purim story, at the end of the miracle, at the end of the Megillah, it just says, Mishteh v'simcha. Mordechai says, never mind, cut the Yom Tov part. And the Gemara says, Mishteh v'simcha kiblu alayu. They accepted the Mishteh v'simcha. Yom Tov loy kiblu alayu. Right? So the question is, here Mordechai, he's the Gadol Hadar. You would expect that after he saved the Jewish people, they would listen to him. So what do you see from here? It doesn't matter what the rabbi does. It doesn't matter. He could save your skin. If he's giving me food, then I listen. If he's telling me what to do, forget it. That's why I give you food, and then while you're eating, you can listen also. No. It's just a joke. Don't worry. Okay. So Mordechai, when he says Mishteh and he says Simcha, everyone cheers. Yom Tov, they didn't accept. Question is, here we're talking about the Jewish people. They're on a very high level. They reached a level that they didn't even reach on Har Sinai, where they're Mekabel the Torah B'Ahava. But they still reject Mordechai's proposal of making Purim a Yom Tov, right? Now the halacha is, are you allowed to do malacha on Yom Tov? It's not like Shabbos. Are you allowed to go to work on Purim? It's not like Shabbos. It's not like Yom Tov. The Gemara does say that you won't see any bracha from the work you do on Purim, but it's not halachically prohibited to work on Purim. Why? Because even though Mordechai tried to propose that it should be a Yom Tov, the Jewish people did not accept it. And the question is, why not? Why not? Why did he not accept it? Okay. So now Rabbi say, we have to talk about a very important thing. It's very important. Every Jew needs to know. Why didn't Vashti come to the party? Why not? She's no, tzaddik. She's not like she's a prutza. Imagine, Vashti she's been dreaming about this her entire life. Achashveirosh invites her to parade herself. Ask the Gemara, Megillah Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, she's a prutza. Why wouldn't she come? And the Gemara says, that we learned in a Brisa, Tana, Ba Gavriel came, Ve'asa ba Zanav, and he made a tail for her. T-A-I-L. In Yiddish, how do you say tail? A schwanz. That's a good way to describe it, right? A schwanz. You know what a tail is, right? It's a long tail. Vashti had a tail. That's what the Gemara says. Gavriel came, and he made a tail on Vashti, and now we understand why she didn't want to come. And this was not going to be a pleasant opportunity for Vashti. Okay, but now let's discuss this tail. Was this really a tail? Did Vashti really have a tail? I mean, I know they taught it to you in kindergarten, but do we take this literally? Well, the Gemara continues that Achashveirosh didn't know what to do with this lady. So he went to his astrologers and his stargazers. He went to the Chachamim. And he said, rabbis, judge the case. So the rabbis had a big dilemma. If we're going to tell him to kill his wife, tomorrow he's going to snap out of his drunken stupor, and he's going to blame us. To tell him, it's okay that she was mavaza you, then it's a disgrace to the king. So the rabbis did a very smart thing, and this is always a good idea, that if someone asks you a difficult question, what do you say? I don't really know. I'm not sure. Maybe ask somebody else. That's always the best policy. Nothing good ever happens from you think you know the answer. I'm telling you. You're always better off deferring to somebody else. So the Chachamim said, what do we know? From the day the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Hashem took away our ideas and our advice and our counsel, and He gave it to Moav. The Moabites and the Ammonites, they were never exiled. They have peace of mind for many, many generations. They have Chachma, they have Eitzah. Why don't you go to Moav? And the question is, what exactly were the rabbis saying? Why were they deferring Achashveirosh to the Moabites? What do the Moabites know about marital discord more than the Chachamim? Says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, an amazing thing. Why is it that the Moabites are now to marry into the Jewish people? Because when we were headed into Eretz Yisrael, the Moabite nation did not give us food and drink. So the Gemara says, very nice. So then the women should also be prohibited because they should have also brought us food and drink. Says the Gemara, no. Only men should have the responsibility to go public and bring public food. But women, it's not their role. They shouldn't be out in the open eye. They should take more of a modest type of role, and therefore it wouldn't have been appropriate for them to bring food to the men. Ask the Gemara, fine. So let the Moabite women bring food to the Jewish women. Says the Gemara, no, even that's inappropriate. Kol kavuda bas melech panima. A woman, her realm of achievement and success is in a more modest way. That's how we're going to say it. Okay? A woman, kol kavuda bas melech panima. A woman has her honor in a more modest type of setting, and therefore we can't expect the Moabite women to have brought food to the Jewish women. So what's the reason why the Moabites, even the men, are expelled from our people, but not the women? Because of the midah of modesty that women are expected to have. In fact, when Bilam went to hire the Moabite women to go and be mezaneh with the Jewish men, the Moabites said, we're not doing it. And Bilam had to go to Midian. And in that zechus, Moav was never exiled. So you know what the Rabbanan were telling Achashveirosh? Achashveirosh, we found a reason for you not to kill your wife Vashti. Go to Moav and figure out, why is Moav still around? Why were they never exiled? You know why they're never exiled? Because of women's modesty. Oh, and then you'll realize that maybe your wife should not have come out to you in the way that you proposed. In other words, it was a way of the Chachamim trying to insinuate to Achashveirosh that Vashti is excused for not coming. Says Rabbi Glatstein, that's the deeper meaning of the Gemara that says that Gabriel came and made a tail. Why? Says Rabbi Glatstein, it's like this. We know there are two opinions in the Gemara how God created the first woman. One opinion is the first man was double-faced. He was half a man, half a woman, but on one side a man and one side a woman. And they never could see each other. Right? Okay? And then Rebbeinu Shem had to split them. That's one opinion. Another opinion is no. God took a rib out of Adam, and from that rib he made man. He made a woman. Says the Gemara, you know why women are modest? Because since God created the woman from the hidden rib of Adam, and a rib is considered, it's a bone that's inside a cage, inside the body, it's considered the most inner part of the body. So therefore women by nature have the midah of modesty. That's if a woman was created from the rib. The Gemara in Bracha says that what's another way of saying that a woman was created from the rib? Zanav, tail. Says Rabbi Glatstein, when the Gemara says Gabriel made a tail on Vashti, it doesn't mean she had a tail. It just means he engendered in her the midah of tznius. The reason why women are modest is because they were created from the rib. The rib is on the inside of the body. Another way of saying rib in Hebrew in the Gemara is tail. When it says Gabriel made a tail, it doesn't mean he made a tail. It's not that Vashti all of a sudden, this thing popped out, 30 feet long like an extension cord all the way. No. It just means he engendered in her the midah of tznius, right? So first I heard this. It's beautiful pshat. So it doesn't really mean Vashti had a tail. It's just an allegory. But then I have to tell you, this was demoralizing to me. Vashti didn't have a tail? My whole life. I always learned that Vashti had a tail. This shattered my whole... It's like part of the Emunah that Vashti had a tail. I didn't know what to do. It's I became very uneasy. And it really troubled me. And I feel it's a very, very big mitzvah to try to explain that even if when the Gemara says that Gabriel came and made a tail, it doesn't mean that. But still, everybody knows Vashti did have a tail. So I think it's a very big mitzvah, especially on Rosh Chodesh Adar. And Purim is coming. To try to explain how really Vashti did have a tail. Even if the Gemara over here is not literal. So that's what we're going to try to do. Anyone who came tonight, it's a very big inyan to try to explain the tail of Vashti. Okay? And I'm not telling you any tales now. This is a very important thing. Your kids are going to come home, and if you tell them Vashti didn't have a tail, it's going to be, they're not going to know. Maybe they're going to think you're an Amoretz. They're learning in yeshiva that Vashti did it, and you're telling them he didn't. It's not going to be good. It might disturb Shalom Bayis, and maybe the children will lose respect for you if you question Vashti's tail. So what we're going to do tonight is really try to find very strong, authentic basis for the tail of Vashti. Okay? And now we begin. And we also have to try to find out, this Achashveirosh guy, the story ends happily ever after, that Mordechai is second in command. What did Achashveirosh do after the Purim story? Where did he go? It doesn't say. Did he go to New Jersey? Where did he go? He just disappears from Tanakh. What happened to him? Did he have a good time afterwards? Where is he? What happened to him? I'm serious over here. What happened to Achashveirosh? It's not Purim Torah. I'm serious stuff. Okay, so we come to a psikta. Okay? The psikta Rabasi says the following. Okay? Fasten your seatbelts. You never heard anything like this in your life. Says this psikta. I'm going to tell you a story about a cow. Says the psikta. There was once a Jewish man who had a cow. No, he owned a cow. And he worked the cow. It was a very good cow. Very solid cow. Successful cow. But he fell in hard times and he had to sell the cow. And a guy bought the cow. So it's Sunday, the guy works the cow. Monday, the guy works the cow. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, the guy says, let's go, we're going to plow. And the cow doesn't move. Shabbos morning, the guy says, let's go, big working day. The cow doesn't budge. The guy takes a club, he bashes the cow over the head, he smacks the cow doesn't move. He takes the cow back to the Jew, he said, Jew, but there's a problem with this cow. This cow doesn't work on Shabbos. So the Jew realized what the problem is. He said, one second, please let me have a word with my cow. He lifts up the ear, he says, listen, the only reason you had a day off is because I was a Shomer Shabbos. But now that you're working for this guy, you gotta work. You hear me? Elsie said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And he started working. The guy said, what'd you tell the cow? What are you, a magician, a kishuf macher? What'd you tell the cow? The Jew said, I told the cow that the cow only has to keep Shabbos if he's working for a year, not if he works for a guy. The guy was so impressed with this exchange that he said to himself like this, Madach, a cow that has no das and no seichel, no intelligence, but listens to Hashem, me, who has a little brains, certainly I have to listen to Hashem. Says the Gemara, this guy went and converted, and he became a Gadol Hadar, and until this day we say over Torah in his name, and his name is Yochanan ben Tairasa. Yochanan, the son of the ox. And if you ask, says the Medrash, here this is what a Kiruv story. The man inspired by the cow, right? I don't know if that's going to be the biggest seller for Kiruv stories, but the man, if you want to know how could a person come close to Hashem through a cow, the Gemara says, what do you think a paraduma is? That's also a way of coming close to Hashem with a cow. So this guy came close to Hashem through a cow. And what was his name, Rabbi Say? Yochanan ben Tairasa. So I'm thinking to myself, Yochanan ben Tairasa, I never heard of him. I never heard of this Tana. So I'm trying to look around Shas and Midrashim. What were the halachos that Yochanan ben Tairasa said? And there are only 3 halachos in Kol HaTorah Kula that Yochanan ben Tairasa said. Number 1, it's a Gemara in Yuma and Daf Tesam and Aleph. Amar Rav Yochanan ben Tairasa, Mibnei Machar Vashilai. We know there was a Mishkan in Shilai for almost 400 years, 369 years. Why was Shiloh destroyed? Because of 2 things. Giloi Arayos and Bizayon Kodshim. Illicit relations, and they disparaged Kodshim. Okay? Very interesting. Yeah, it sounds like Achashveirosh Suda or something. Gilui Arayos, and right? And being Mavaza Kodshim. Another story. There's another Medrash. The Medrash says like this, that if you ever want to speak in public, you need to review what you're going to say. How many times do you think you need to review what you're going to say? It's a halacha. At least 4 times. Don't get up to speak unless people get up to speak, First, I'm not a speaker. I'm not a speaker. So if you're not a speaker, so then get down. Don't speak. Right? That's the first. Then, I was thinking of saying, I don't care what you're thinking of saying. Tell me what you're going to say. Don't tell me what you're thinking. It's bad enough I have to hear what you're going to say. Now I have to hear what you're thinking of saying. Right? I was walking here and I didn't even know what I was going to say. If you didn't know what you were going to say when you're walking here, then maybe this is not the right time. Right? If you want to speak in public, you must review what you're going to say 4 times. Otherwise, you're wasting people's time. It's an avla. Don't do that to people. Who do we learn it from? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbeinu Shalom would not teach 1 word of Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu unless first he reviewed it 4 times. How do I know it? It's a pasuk. Pasuk says, Azra, God saw, Vayisapra, he said it over, Heichina, he prepared it, V'gam Chakara, he investigated. Says the Medrash, if the Rebbeinu Shalom went over his speech 4 times, then every person who ever gets up must review what they're going to say at least 4 times. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you a story. There was a man by the name of Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa, and he was walking with Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva said, "No, tell me a Dvar Torah." And Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa said, "I can't. I haven't organized it 4 times yet." And the rabbi said, "Attaboy, that's the right way to do it. You can't talk unless you prepare it 4 times." So that's the second halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa ever said. The first one is, why was Shiloh destroyed? because of Gilei Arayos and Bizas Kachim. The second halacha is, if you want to speak, you need to review it 4 times. And number 3, there was a man by the name of Bar Kochva. Bar Kochva was a powerful general to the point where many people thought he was Mashiach, including Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to Bar Kochva, "You are Mashiach." And Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa said to Rabbi Akiva, "Grass will grow in your mouth before this man is Mashiach." Look at number 26. Rabbi Yochanan said on the pasuk, "Darach Kochav mi Yaakov." A star emerged from Yaakov. Don't read it. Kochav ela Koizav. A reference to Ben Koiziva, Bar Kochva. Rabbi Akiva can have a chamilei lahadin Bar Koiziva. When Rabbi Akiva saw Bar Kochva have a Amar, he would say, "Hainu Malka Mashiach." Here's Mashiach. Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa, Akiva yalu asavim b'chayecha v'adayin ein arba. Grass will grow in your mouth, Rabbi Akiva, before Mashiach, before this guy's Mashiach. So to me, it's very interesting that in Kol HaTorah Kula, Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa only says 3 things. Number 1, why was Shiloh destroyed? Because of Gilei Arayos and Bizas Kachim. Number 2, before you speak, you need to review it 4 times. And number 3, no, Mashiach hasn't come yet. Bar Kochva is not Mashiach. But before I address why he said these 3 things, what's really weighing on my heart right now, and what's really troubling me, is the fact that according to Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Vashti didn't have a tail. So what are we going to do? Baruch Hashem, there was a great man by the name of the Rama MiPano. Rav Menachem Azariah MiPano was one of the Italian Mekubalim, and he wrote a sefer called Gilgulei Neshamas. And he tells us who everyone was the Gilgul of. And he tells us a mind-boggling thing. That you know who Vashti turned into? Vashti turned into the cow that didn't work on Shabbos. Mida keneged mida. Vashti made the Jewish women work on Shabbos. Aruma. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, you're going to be a cow. Cows don't wear too much. And you're going to not work on Shabbos. So now we know. Oh, I was so happy when I heard that. You know why? Because now Vashti really does have a tail. So Baruch Hashem, Vashti has a tail, but not the tail you always thought. It's a different tail. Okay? So the name of the shiur is the tails of Vashti's tail. But it's not the old tail, it's a new tail. It's a big chiddush. We're saying big chiddushim about Vashti's tail. Vashti was really a cow. And then after Vashti was a cow, she had a cow. She had many doros of Purim. But the first cow was the cow that didn't work on Shabbos. Says Rama MiPano. And who was the guy who bought the cow? Achashveirosh. The guy who bought the cow, who converted and became Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa, he's the Tana, he's Achashveirosh. So now we know, listen to this. The grandchildren of Haman are learning Torah and Bnei Brak. Vashti is a cow. And Achashveirosh is the Gadol Hadar. How's that for V'nahapachu? Okay? The grandchildren of Haman are learning Torah. Vashti is being milked. And Achashveirosh is the Gadol Hadar. And then Hashem sent me a big chiddush. You ready for this? That means in Kol HaTorah Kula, Achashveirosh said 3 chidushim. Because Rama MiPano writes, when Achashveirosh turned into this Tana, Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa, he was masake in all of his averos. So to me, it's very simple. The first aver of Achashveirosh was, what did he have at the party? Giloi Arayos. And he was mevazeh the kachim. He was mevazeh the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan ben Tairasa and he says, look, I'm Achashveirosh, I got to rectify what that guy did. So he gives a whole shiur. That why was Shiloh destroyed? Because of Gilei Arayos and Bizas Kachim. That's the first way. Then he thinks to himself, and he says, well, my great-grandfather Achashveirosh, you know what his other problem was? He was a melech hafchaf. He was a flip-flop. He he would say this thing, and then he would say a different thing, and something else. He could never get the story straight. So the next Chiddush of Rabbi Yochanan ben Toirasa is that before you speak in public, you better review what you're going to say 4 times so you don't stumble. No flip-flopping. But then the other mistake of Achashveirosh was that Achashveirosh said, God, you said that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt after 70 years. Mashiach isn't coming. So Achashveirosh's Aveira was, he told the Jewish people wrongly that Mashiach is not coming. So how is he going to rectify that? Now he has to tell Rabbi Akiva in the right way. Rabbi Akiva, you think Bar Kochva is Mashiach? Sorry, you got the wrong guy. So all of the Averos of Achashveirosh were corrected by his Gilgal, Rabbi Yochanan ben Toirasa. So Baruch Hashem, the story ends happily ever after. Haman's grandchildren are learning in Kol HaChazanish. Vashti, she got a tail, Baruch Hashem. She got a real tail, a full-fledged, bona fide, halachic tail. And Achashveirosh is now the Gadol Hador. He's teaching Chidushim in Masechta Yuma and in the Medrash. And he's teaching Rabbanim all over the world that before they get up to speak, they need to review their shir at least 4 times. So let's come back to Havdalah Motzai Shabbos. Okay? Says Rav Hutner in the Sefer Leket Rishimos in number 28. That why was it that when Mordechai said, listen Klal Yisrael, not only Mishteh, not only Simcha, but V'Yom Tif, why would all Klal Yisrael, boo, we don't like Yom Tif. You know why? Says Rav Hutner, because if you're going to make Purim into a Yom Tif, you know what you're going to have to do, Matzai Purim? You're going to have to make Havdalah. If Purim would be a day that you can't do Malacha, you're going to have to make Havdalah when Purim is over. And says Rav Hutner, in the name of the Chachmei Ho'emes, Jews did not want to be mavdil from Purim. Jews are so connected to Purim, they're so attached to Purim, they're so drawn after Purim, that they can't be mavdil from Purim. They can't separate from Purim. By the way, that's why, remember in Sarah Imenu's tent, there was an amazing phenomenon, and that is her Friday night candles remain lit the whole week. What's the meaning of that? Why were Sarah's candles lit the whole week? Because Sarah was on the level that her Shabbos was so effective and powerful that the Kedusha of Shabbos in the tent of Sarah continued the whole week. Brought down in the Sefer Na'is Desha of the Avnei Nezer of Sachachav, that the reason why Sarah's candles remain lit the whole week is because her Kedusha continued from Shabbos the entire week. By the way, women have a minhag that when they make Havdalah, Matzah Shabbos, they don't drink from the Havdalah. When we make Havdalah, Matzah Shabbos, women do not drink from the Havdalah. You make Havdalah, your wife wants to drink it, your daughter wants to drink it, the minhag is women don't drink from Havdalah. Now some people take it too far. If the husband made Havdalah already, and there's no one to make Havdalah for a woman, she should make it herself and drink it. It's only a minhag. But she has to make Havdalah. If there's no one to make it, then she could make Havdalah and drink it. But all things being equal, a woman doesn't drink from Havdalah. Why not? So, there's an amazing sefer, Shailas Teshuvas Mishnah Sacher, from Rabbi Sachar Shloima Teichtal, the author of Eima Banim Smecha. And in the beginning of that sefer, there's a approbation, a haskama from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonnenfeld. And he says, you know why women don't drink from Havdalah? Because women, they feel so connected to Shabbos. It's too hard for them to be mavdil from Shabbos. They can't bring themselves to make a separation from Shabbos. So they say, you know what? That's for the men. The men are not holy enough to hold on to Shabbos the whole week. So the men, they drink from the Havdalah. The men are ready to put Shabbos away right away. The women, they're able to hold on to it as much as possible, like Sarim. So it comes out like this. Every Matzah Shabbos, it's a very sad time. It's very sad for us. Here we had a Neshama Yisera Matzah Shabbos, and now it's gone. Shabbos is a very important day to learn. The purpose of Shabbos, the word Shabbos means to learn. In fact, the Ksav HaKabbalah says if a person keeps all the halachas of Shabbos but doesn't spend time learning, it's not considered keeping Shabbos even. Because the Chazal say anyone who, if Klal Yisrael would keep 2 Shabbosim, Mashiach would come. Says the Ksav HaKabbalah, the 2 Shabbosim are, number 1, not doing malacha on that Shabbos, and number 2, learning on that Shabbos. The definition of keeping Shabbos is learning on Shabbos. So here Shabbos is, and by the way, Ben Ish Chai writes, learning on Shabbos is worth 1,000 times learning during the week. So here it is, Shabbos is over. It's a very sad time. You lose your neshama Yisera. And now you have to make Havdalah, and you have to separate from Shabbos. What are you going to do to lift your spirits? So our Chachamim gave us something to console us. And you know what they said? Even though you have to separate from Shabbos, and you have to be mavdil from Shabbos, there's one day a year you never have to be mavdil from. And that's Purim. La Yehudim ha'isa'ira v'simcha v'sasayin mikar. Every Matzah Shabbos. Every Matzah Shabbos, remember the miracle of Purim. We take out the Besamim, that's Mordechai. We take out the Hadas, that's Esther. We take out the 2 wicks, Mordechai and Esther, and we say that even though we have to be mavdil from Shabbos, we never accepted Purim as a Yom Tif. Why? Because we didn't want to be mavdil from Purim. A Jew's neshama could remain connected to Purim the whole year. And that is our consolation, Matzai Shabbos. As we set Shabbos aside, but at least we're able to hold on to the Yom Tif of Purim. So now that we're in Chodesh Adar, and we're headed to this great day, we should all be zoicha to a month of Yeshuas v'Nachamos, and Simcha, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbin b'Simcha, Abiyas Glatstein, Hervi Yamenu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.